Right. Before you get too excited, let me clarify something immediately. There is no actual romantic love affair between Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer. Sorry to disappoint the tabloid enthusiasts among you, but there absolutely is a political love affair, a mutual dependency that is currently crumbling faster than a sandcastle at high tide. And the catalyst for this spectacular collapse? A pub landlord in Yorkshire who has had enough of Labour's economic vandalism and has banned the Chancellor from his premises. Yes, you read that correctly. Rachel Reeves, the woman who controls Britain's purse strings, cannot get a drink at her local. And the political fallout from this pub ban has been absolutely glorious, culminating in a blistering GB News interview that exposed just how disconnected Labour has become from ordinary working people. Quick favour. If you are absolutely loving this Westminster drama, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Over 94% of you have not yet. It is free, takes 2 seconds, and genuinely helps us keep bringing you these political explosions. Cheers if you did. Right, back to the pub controversy that has Westminster in meltdown. So let us set the scene properly, shall we? Martin Knowles, landlord of the Martian in Pudsey, has taken the extraordinary step of banning Rachel Reeves and all other Labour MPs from his pub. This is not some political stunt by a publicity-hungry landlord. This is a businessman who is staring down the barrel of financial ruin thanks to Labour's budget, and he has decided that if the Chancellor is going to destroy his livelihood, then she is not welcome to enjoy the fruits of his labour. The reason? Business rates are set to surge next year following Reeves' budget last month, and hospitality businesses across Britain are facing an existential crisis. Now, pub bans are not exactly common in British politics. MPs get heckled, certainly. They face angry constituents, absolutely. But being formally barred from a local establishment, that is rare, and it speaks to the absolutely seething rage that hospitality business owners feel towards this government. The Martian is in Reeves' own constituency of Leeds West and Pudsey. This is not some random pub in a conservative stronghold having a go at a Labour Chancellor. This is her own local, in her own patch, telling her she is not welcome. That is politically devastating. Deputy Conservative Chairman Matt Vickers appeared on Camilla Tominey's show on GB News to discuss this controversy, and he absolutely did not hold back. When Tominey asked him what he thought about Rachel Reeves being banned from her local pub, Vickers' response was deliciously blunt. He started by saying that sometimes when people are banned from things because of their politics, it is a bit naff, a bit petty. But then he pivoted immediately to the substance of why this ban is completely justified. But in real terms, do you know what this woman is doing to the hospitality trade in this country? 111,000 people have lost their jobs since this government came to power and slammed them all with that tax, that jobs tax. Now she has come back for more. 111,000 jobs lost. Let that sink in for a moment. Since Labour came to power, 111,000 people working in hospitality have lost their livelihoods. That is not a rounding error. That is not statistical noise. That is a catastrophe. These are real people, bartenders, chefs, waiting staff, managers, cleaners, all of whom had jobs under the previous government and do not have jobs now. And the primary cause? Labour's tax policies, specifically the increase in employer national insurance contributions that Vickers calls a jobs tax, because that is exactly what it is. When you increase the cost of employing people, businesses employ fewer people. Economics 101, apparently not taught at whatever school Rachel Reeves attended. Camilla Tominey, who is one of the sharpest political interviewers in Britain, pressed Vickers further with a question dripping in sarcasm. So you are happy for the Chancellor to be told there is no room at the Martian in Pudsey for her to have an Aperol spritz. That image, Rachel Reeves being denied her trendy Italian cocktail at a local pub, is simultaneously hilarious and deeply symbolic. The Chancellor, with her comfortable salary and generous expenses, cannot get a drink at a pub that is struggling to survive because of her own policies. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Vickers did not back down. I think what she is doing to the hospitality business is appalling. How those backbench MPs can walk through a lobby and vote for that, I do not know. They should get themselves down to the pub and see these people who work day and night. That last line is absolutely crucial. Labour backbench MPs, many of whom represent working-class constituencies with significant hospitality sectors, voted for a budget that is destroying businesses and jobs in their own communities. They walked through the lobby, press a button, and condemn thousands of their own constituents to unemployment. And apparently, none of them bothered to actually speak to pub landlords, restaurant owners, or hospitality workers before doing so. Now, Labour's defence of the budget includes pointing to their increase in the minimum wage, which they trumpet as a living wage that will lift workers out of poverty. When Tomini challenged Vickers on this, his response was devastating in its simplicity. It is great having a pay rise and a living wage, but if you have not got a job, it is not much use to you. Boom. MIC drop. You can offer people all the wage increases in the world, but if those wage increases cause businesses to close and jobs to disappear, then you have achieved precisely nothing except making yourself feel virtuous. A higher wage is useless if there is no job to pay that wage for. This is the fundamental disconnect at the heart of Labour's economic policy. They seem to believe that you can endlessly increase taxes on businesses and endlessly increase employment costs, and businesses will just absorb these costs without consequence. But businesses are not magical money trees. They operate on margins, often very thin margins, and when costs increase beyond what they can sustain, they cut staff, reduce hours, or close entirely. Hospitality operates on particularly tight margins. Pubs, restaurants, and cafes are not raking in enormous profits. They are surviving, often barely, and any significant cost increase can push them over the edge. The business rate surge that landlords are facing is particularly brutal. Business rates are property tax that businesses pay based on the rental value of their premises. They are one of the most hated taxes in Britain because they are inflexible. They hit businesses regardless of whether they are profitable, and they disproportionately affect physical premises like shops, pubs, and restaurants. Online businesses with no physical presence pay minimal business rates, while traditional businesses with actual buildings face crippling bills. Labour's budget has made this worse, and landlords like Martin Knowles are staring at bills they simply cannot afford to pay. The Treasury, predictably, declined to comment directly on Reeves being banned from the pub. Of course they did. What could they possibly say? Actually, the Chancellor is welcome at all pubs, and the landlord is being mean. Instead, a department spokesperson trotted out the standard line about protecting pubs, restaurants, and cafes with the budget's £4.3 billion support package. That number, £4.3 billion. Sound impressive until you actually examine what it includes and realize that much of it is smoke and mirrors, tax relief that was already in place, temporary measures that do not address underlying structural problems, and funds that will not reach businesses quickly enough to prevent closures. The spokesperson also mentioned efforts to ease licensing to help venues offer pavement drinks and put on one-off events, maintaining the cut to alcohol duty on draft pints, and capping corporation tax. Pavement drinks and one-off events. When your business is facing a catastrophic increase in costs that threatens your entire viability, being told you can more easily put tables on the pavement is not exactly reassuring. It is like being on a sinking ship and the captain announcing that deck chairs are now available in a wider range of colors. Technically helpful, but completely missing the point. The alcohol duty cut on draft pints is genuine, and publicans do appreciate it, but it is a relatively small saving compared to the massive increases in business rates and employment costs. It is like the government setting your house on fire and then offering you a bucket of water whilst claiming they are supporting homeowners. The gesture does not match the scale of the damage being caused. What makes this entire controversy so politically toxic for Labour is that it exposes the class divide at the heart of the party. Rachel Reeves comes from a comfortable professional background. She was an economist at the Bank of England before entering politics. She understands spreadsheets and macroeconomic theory. What she manifestly does not understand is what it is like to run a small business on wafer-thin margins, to worry about meeting payroll, to lie awake at night wondering if you can afford to keep the lights on. The Martian landlord understands this intimately because he lives it every single day. When he bans Reeves from his pub, he is not making a petty political point. He is expressing genuine rage from someone whose livelihood is being destroyed by policies created by people who have never faced the consequences of their own decisions. Matt Vickers' comment about backbench Labour MPs is particularly cutting because it highlights the complicity of hundreds of MPs who knew, or should have known, what this budget would do to hospitality businesses and their constituencies. They had opportunities to rebel, to demand changes, to protect their constituents. Instead, they fell into line, voted as they were told, and are now facing the consequences in their own communities. The broader context here is a relationship between labor and business, which has always been complicated. Tony Blair and Gordon Brown worked hard to reassure businesses that labor was business-friendly, that the party understood wealth creation and entrepreneurship. Keir Starmer made similar noises before the election, talking about partnering with business and supporting economic growth. But actions speak louder than words, and Labour's actions since taking power have been consistently anti-business. The increase in employer national insurance, the changes to business rates, the employment rights reforms that increase costs and reduce flexibility, all of these policies suggest a government that fundamentally does not understand or trust private enterprise. Rachel Reeves being banned from her local pub is a perfect encapsulation of this disconnect. She sits in Treasury meetings, pores over economic models, and genuinely believes she is making sensible, progressive decisions that will improve Britain. Meanwhile, the people her decisions actually affect, the pub landlords, the restaurant owners, the small business operators, are watching their dreams collapse and their livelihoods evaporate. And when one of them has the courage to say, "You are not welcome here because of what you have done to me," it becomes a national news story because it is so rare for politicians to face direct, personal consequences for their policies.